Now we very sorry for some technical issues. Then we would give the floor to Oksana Denисенко, who is the cultural producer and the founder of the creative platform Urban Stories. So she represents Vисagинас, which is the very young city of Lithuania, and it was built for the people who were going to work at the nuclear power plant. But then it was closed, and now the city has got a different fate, and we learned it yesterday. So I will be speaking English. Sorry, my English friends. So just I will be speaking English. Or Russian, sorry. Thank you for introducing the city, the town. That's the nuclear city, yes. But I will be speaking about the processes which are carried out in the town, and they are very closely connected to the identity, to the transfer from the nuclear town to post-nuclear town, and how the culture facilitates this process, this transfer, and how it makes it easier and more smooth, and how we try to find some new opportunities, to open some new opportunities for the city. I hope that everything will go fine with my presentation. I will, yeah, do you see it? Do you see my presentation? Just a second, let's take a second. Yes, everything goes well. Super. So, of course, we are always short of time at the conferences, but I have got very much to say. But I will try to be brief and concrete about what we are doing here in Vисagинас. So, I will get to to the idea that Vисagинас is the nuclear city. That's the first nuclear city in Lithuania, and it was it did not arise organically. So that was planned city, and it was planned to be built like this by the Soviet authorities, but not Lithuanian authorities. And for all this time, it has been a kind of a burden, a kind of invasive product, which drew people from different republics of the former Soviet Union, and they were very much attached to the place because nothing else brought them together, joined them together, than the fact that they were the employees of the nuclear power plant. Even when we speak about the city, we usually name it as the satellite town, and it means that there are very close connections to the nuclear power. And so over these 6 years, the city has been keeping the idea that it's the nuclear city. That's the nuclear identity, but it hasn't been kept, or it is not to be kept forever. And in 2004, the decision was taken to shut it down, to close it down. And in 2004, the first block was shut down, and in 2009, the second block was shut down. And people were actually not ready for such a radical change, because it's again probably not very organic decision that the nuclear power station has to be shut down. But to Lithuania, it was a big choice to join the European Union, and the nuclear power station was a risk factor for European community, and we had to take such a difficult decision, both economically and socially, and as well as in terms of cultural identity too. Well, then nuclear identity existed until 2009, but then there is a big issue. What is happening then? What is happening after that? And so I showed this kind of the burial stone with the flowers, as a representation of the death of the nuclear station, but more as a reminder of the past. reminder that we keep alive after the nuclear power station was closed, and it's a reminder of those people who built the town, who built the nuclear power station, and those who even participated in some restoration works and some, extreme works at the Chernobyl power station. Then we lived through the identity crisis because the reason why the town was set up and why people came to the city. So these reasons were no longer valid. And then people had to find some different reason to go on living and find some new purpose in their life there in Visaginas. And I found out 4 reasons and 4 issues that people were mostly thinking of. So first, people did not believe that I also was born in Visaginas, and I have been living in Visaginas all this time, all my life. So when you live in Visaginas, you can hardly believe that it is possible to close down the power plant, which brings you a lot of money. And it didn't seem realistic and it didn't seem practically possible. But after the first block was shut down in 2004, the overall mood got worse. It just decreased, but then there was the closure of the second block. But then there was some hope that probably the second block would survive and it would go on working. And it's the nuclear town, and we will remain in the status of the nuclear town, and we will develop further as the nuclear town. And this mood was in the air. But then the second block was also shut down, and those people who constructed the nuclear power station, power plant, they had to find some new, just a new objective and new direction of their work. And they had to participate in the reconstruction of and some restoration processes. And in 2004 or 2009, there was a kind of a general depression, and there was no connection to the town. There was no reason to go and live in there. And actually, they were set. They were good to live. And the population of the city halved at that time. Now we have got 18,000 people who live in the city, and the open borders made it possible for the younger generation to go abroad to study. And the town was shrinking and the town stagnated. But at some particular moment, I would define it as 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we came to terms with the fact that the nuclear power plant was closed, and we understood that we had to choose the direction for the further development, because before we used to have the power plant as a kind of the motivator and as the factor that brought people together, but then we didn't have anything like this. Yeah, we no longer had this kind of mono motivator, or just something that was uniting people. Then how do people live today with this understanding of the idea that we are post-nuclear city, post-nuclear town? Yeah, some people use this nuclear heritage very skillfully, and they even try to derive some economic benefit from it. These are some paid guided tours around the town, the guided tours to the power plant, to the simulator, to bunker. Yeah, so just they kind of play with these elements, and because they promote very kind of, they boost the imagination of the people. Then there is a different group of people who have very close connections to the power plant, and they want to purify the memory of the nuclear heritage. Then there is the third group of people who try to ignore, to neglect their past, because Visaginas is the town which was built by non-Lithuanian forces. It was a kind of city that was input that was implanted into Lithuanian fabric. And for a very long time, the city was accepted as a kind of the alien element. And the official history is really very brief. So the just if you check the official history of Vисagинас, you will find a lot of information about the Ice Age or about what it was there in this location in the Ice Age, but not very much about what was there during the nuclear power plant. So now we are in this transition period to post-nuclear condition, and it loses the connection. It loses the connection between the present and the past. It loses the network of connections which must cement the future, the past and the present. We need to understand our past to understand our current issues and our current challenges, but it's difficult because now we have literally no access to our past. Yeah, so we are looking for the ways, for the scenarios how to join our past and the present. I would address the issue of cultural memory because identity proceeds from this collective historical memory. And the cultural identity of Vисagинас derived from this proximity to a nuclear town. People were proud of building this gigantic power plant, gigantic enterprise, and that fueled their feeling of pride. And it gave them the meaning of life. It defined their meaning of life. That is why people understood why they were there, why they brought their families to this place, or why they started their families in that place. And the cultural identity is based on the nuclear identity. But while some people are really very happy reminding their past, or just when they try to recall their younger years when they came to Vисagинас and when they started to build the power plant publicly, the attitude is absolutely different, and that produces conflict. And that produces misunderstanding between different groups of people. But we understand that we have to be tolerant to different opinions and to different histories. The town is really very young. It is only 46 years old, and it has always been dreaming about the museum. And the first museum appeared several years ago. And there was a big issue what to collect in the museum, because actually the history is very short. But we decided that we needed some artifacts which would make it possible for the future generation to understand and to trace back the history of the town and just the different ways or the different ways of development or the scenarios of the city development. We decided to set up a museum and collect different materials. And now you can see the pictures of this mini museum. We don't have some premises for the museum, and we don't have some museum team or museum budget. It has always belonged to some institution. Like now it has belonged to the cultural center, whose aim is to improve the cultural life in the city. It's not about preserving the historical past, but creating the cultural today. After some time, when I left Vисagинас some time ago, but then I decided to come back because I am attracted by the idea that you will always find something new to do here, and you will always be innovative, and you can always start some new project. And it's really great, it's really motivating. And now museum might have some different light and different purpose. And well, just it didn't used to be very active, but now it really has got its opportunities. When people talk about museum, they understand it as some walls with big pictures hanging on the walls, and the older generation can see the main people, or the kind of major citizens, residents of the city, and they see some key events in the city life, like opening of something or introduction of something. But I thought that it's, well, just a small part of what the town can tell. And it's just a fraction of the town's history, and the city has got a variety of shorter stories which are not represented in the museums, and nobody knows about them. And so then the town can find itself being very badly understood, because those who listen to its narrative know only one particular part of its history. And it's not only about me, but my team and my colleagues I work with, and the people who we share the same interests. So these like-minded people have been concentrating on the major history, no matter what history it is, whether it is official or non-official. Well, just doesn't matter absolutely. Or so it can be official history or unofficial history, like, well, which well, focuses on some different issues. But in these histories, you can also find lots of other people. How Visaginas is different from other Lithuanian towns? It is very young, and it means that there are people who can tell us the current history. We don't have to dig the history out from the books or from some historical sources, but you can simply talk to people, and you can learn different stories. And you don't have to make one story much more interesting than the other. You don't have to raise the significance of one story, but for the other. But these are people who can tell you the stories. They can speak about their family histories, about the geography of those places they came from, and they can also participate in the historical narrative, and it makes the whole well, historical part very interesting, very diverse. It's a very small and compact town, and I guess that if you take a walk around Visaginas, you cover no more than 9 kilometers. And why is the situation with history so badly developed? Probably because nobody dealt with it and nobody knew what is required from it. We know some formal requirements, but well, we guess that activism, like public activism, can stimulate the development of historical identity much better than some administrative resource. That is why the topic of my talk today is more about the people who live in this city and how people can boost the historical development, because each city resident is an ambassador of its own place, and each city resident can distribute the information about the place. And if the residents are not interested in their local history, they very often get bored and they lack the understanding what they can do there. And after you've graduated from a big university in some big city, you can hardly find the idea of returning to your hometown attractive. Yeah, so then it means that we have to wake up the creativity, because people need to understand what Visaginas is about. It's not only the nuclear city. It's not only about crane. Crane is the official symbol of the city. And it's not a butterfly, which is another symbol of Vисagинас. But what is Vисагинас about? I will show you the projects which try to capture this identity, and they try to give the answer why local citizens, local residents can be so much interested in its history and can feel unique. The audience may be different. These are people from from teenagers, young people, until the elderly generation. And the idea of our project is to bring these different generations together and to make older generation talk to younger generation about their experiences. And it's great when these generations get together and when they meet and they can share their ideas of the city, of the town. The first project I'm going to talk about is the creative laboratory aimed at teenagers living in our town. And the teenagers show their intentions to leave the city as soon as they leave school. It's not bad because sometimes they can get back to their hometown with new knowledge and experience, but we understood that our teenagers are, well, kind of fans of photography. They are fond of taking pictures, and we decided to come to some photo club. In the photo club, people always try to find something new about photographing technique or try to find some new elements. But when you start talking to younger people, to teenagers, you understand that they know almost nothing about the history of their town. They know how to take a picture of sunset and how to, well, to see the projection and so on, but they do not know anything about the history. And we decided to develop a scenario or to develop a methodology how to interact with people, how to involve the people into our project. And we, well, I understood from my experience that it's great for the people to know what they are doing. And when you do some creative work, you have to have some vision. The children, the teenagers who were on the project, they wanted to see their works demonstrated, and they wanted to share their work with their friends, relatives, parents, and so on. And that was the design, architecture, the town research. So we tried to research the town and we tried to play with different ideas. One group was assigned the task to find some geometry in the city lines. The other group was assigned some natural project or eco project. And then people got back and they shared their ideas on the project. They shared their works and they get inspired, and next day they come back with this new inspiration and they just spark up with these new ideas. The first picture showed you the archway or the arches, and they are no longer used now. They are a little bit ruined, and we decided to make an exhibition of our works by the city day, by the day of the city. And we wanted to demonstrate the results of this project for the other residents. Another project, well, just we didn't plan it. It was not our intention, but it turned out to be commercialized very well. Well, one of the companies which produced sweatshirts, so it decided, or hoodies, it decided to use the images made by the teenagers to produce these sweatshirts. And the children, the teenagers were really very proud of seeing their work in, well, some different production. Well, how to make people heard and how to read about these unofficial stories and how to find the traces of the local history in some social networks. Of course, the answer is in the context contact with people. And we are proud to have very active senior citizens. And so they also can create something rather interesting, but they do not go beyond their social clubs. And it means that teenagers don't ever expect the elderly people be a part of some common project. And younger people don't know anything about the interests and life of elderly population. So we set up a series of meetings and guided tours, which were devoted to history, and this history was given firsthand. And these were the meetings with the representatives of different professions, occupations. Well, the first meeting brought some medical workers who came to Vисagинас very, very long time ago, and they recalled what kind of work they had in the beginning of their life here, how they treated people and what kind of activities they held. Well, and then you can see one of the older residents of our city. You can see the boat station, and we found out that before the city was built here, it was the location for a house, and the residence of the house was a Tatar man and a Polish woman. We understood that sometimes when you take a walk around the city, around the town, you don't even have an idea that that something used to be here, and you don't expect it there. We also created some audio guides, and we created some guided tours around our courtyards and around less attractive places. And when you go around and when you listen to some sounds, when you listen to some stories, you change your attitude to the place and you see the place with some different eyes. And these city tours attracted local population. Yes, and if there were some visitors through the city, they also were very much interested in participating in such guided tour. But even for the residents, it was really very interesting. Then you can see the interviews. We interviewed some local residents, and we produced some audio material. Oksana, we are running short of time, and it's really very interesting, and I'm really very inspired with these stories of Vисagинас and your city guidebook or city guiding material. And I guess that our Polish colleague is almost ready to join us. So probably we can ask and answer the questions. So does anybody have any questions to Oksana? Anya Olimpieva, are you ready with the question? Oksana, thank you very much. It's really very inspiring. And I have a question about the cultural memory. How diverse is it in Vисagинас? Because very often it is of conflict character, and sometimes conflicts can bring to some even to some aggression, because people very often try to reject a part of the history, and we understand that for Lithuania it's an issue, and there are some people who want to forget the whole lot or just the whole Soviet history in Lithuania. For Kaliningrad it's a different story. So there are some people who want to erase some pre-war history, but for Vисagинас it's impossible to erase the Soviet memories, the Soviet history, because it is all Soviet. Are there any conflicts there? Thank you for this question. Yes, I wouldn't say that we can see many conflicts, open conflicts or open evil remarks. Sometimes it might happen, but people share their different opinions. People show the diversity of opinions. Of course, we have to admit that it's the Soviet city, but what is the problem? When you focus on one particular element of the history, and when you escalate that it's only the nuclear town, or when you call it Soviet town, you neglect a huge part of some other space, some other history, some other people, even those people who came in the Soviet time and who were building the town in the Soviet time. But I noticed that when you talk about it in a different manner, just when it is the administrative resource which shares this information, when it is the administrative resource, it's yes, it is a matter of conflict. But when you show the people on some personal level, I guess that the secret is in this kind of personal contact, this personal touch, because when people are addressed, they can cast a different light on the city, because you understand how how multifaceted the cultural memory can be, and that Lithuania has some issues with accepting Visaginas as a Lithuanian city. But when you show it not only as the nuclear town, but as a town for other opportunities, and when you show a variety of people who come from different places, and they develop different aspects of social life, and when people start getting into that, getting deeper into that, you understand that it's not the matter of conflict. You understand that Visaginas is not a homogeneous city. It used to be homogeneous. It used to be homogeneously nuclear, but now it is not only nuclear. It is whatever you wanted to see. It's well, just you have to find the proper way, the proper methodology to open it up. And I guess that culture and cultural projects, the cultural representations, they are the best way. Now we are creating the architectural guidebook on Visaginas, and we are supplying it with the sound card, with the soundtrack, and even those people who live away from Visaginas can get access to it and can study something about Visaginas. And I guess that we cannot silence the conflict issues, but we have to provide a better platform for the dialogue. Ola Varankova, another question, and well, thank you so much, Oksana, for your reply. Thank you for such an inspiring examples of cultural interventions into quite a complicated context. But you mentioned that younger population tends to leave the city, and how do you how do you see your activity in this context? Do you understand that you have to trigger some other processes which will inspire people to stay in the town? Have you just studied, have you observed anything like this? Well, you know, so just we haven't got very much time to study what can influence young people to leave the city and to get back. But when we get in contact with people young people who participate in our projects, we hear them saying that probably it's not the worst city, probably it's not such a dull and boring place, and you can have some performances outside in the streets, and you can be open, and you can be different, because now the conditions are different. Then the second point is that the city now is not culturally isolated, because why do you want to leave the city? Probably when it is closed, when it is isolated. But as soon as it is not like this, you have got better opportunities. Once we had an exhibition which was conducted by our Norwegian partner, and when you see that there are some people coming from from abroad, people from different creative ideas who come to this place and who organize some cultural event for the local residents, then you understand that, oh, it's cool. Yeah, so just then you can have something very lively even in your hometown. The third point is marketing. And of course, you understand how to present the history of the place, or in what way you present the history so that it is interesting for the local residents. Once we had an artist who showed different aspects of social life, well, as an attractive place, and how to develop this attractive attitude. Everybody started looking for some smaller aspects which are not, well, just which are relevant not only to the nuclear station, nuclear power plant, but to the life of the town in general. So just you have to understand how to sell the idea and what to focus on. And that will certainly help you to attract people to stay here. Oksana, thanks a lot. That's very positive presentation, and very bright and positive, vibrant presentation. And the topic, the issue of identity change is very close to me. I think that everyone who works and lives in this city sooner or later face this issue. Thank you so much for your examples, for the projects, how you interact with different generations. And so it's always very interesting to find some ways to solve these issues and to overcome the problems, and how you work with different groups, and how you work with archives and with elderly people, and how you connect people together, how you bring different generations together, and how you, well, just tell these stories firsthand. And thank you so much.